Swedish is kind of weird sometimes. Brandon here, registered nurse from the United States, working and living in Sweden. And one of the things that I struggle with the Swedish language has to do with betoning. So it's the tone that you use. There's like a rhythm of how you say the words. So I'm going to give you an example. In English, where I come from in the States, you can say a word with all sorts of different tones and people will still know what you're talking about. I'm going to give you an example. Thermometer. If you say it a little bit off, like thermometer, 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 people will understand what you're saying. That doesn't work in Swedish. At least that's been my experience. So when I first said the word thermometer in Swedish, it looks quite similar to English. I said thermometer. That was a habit I had because I knew that there's like a rhythm, but there's nothing on the word to like show you like how to do the rhythm. And so I would get it wrong. And people just stared at me and they're like, what are you saying? I'm like, thermometer. And I try to say slower, thermometer. And they still had no idea what I'm saying. But the way to say it in Swedish is thermometer. So there's a rhythm to it. And that is like one of the hardest things for me because I have studied a language that's tonal, and that is Vietnamese. But with Vietnamese, there are markings on the words so you know what tone to do. In Swedish, it's implied. You just have to know. There are some rules, but I find them quite complicated and they don't always apply. Another example is the word for diabetes. Where I come from in Texas, we have a very pronounced way of saying the word diabetes. So there's diabetes, of course, is the correct way to say it. But where I come from, people say diabetes. And you still know what they're talking about. And of course, my father was super redneck, and so his way of saying diabetes was sugar diabetes. And so you could say diabetes, diabetes, diabetes. It didn't matter. People knew what you were saying. But in Swedish, the word is pretty much the same, but the tone is different. And so it looks like diabetes or diabetes, but they say diabetes. And that was so hard for me because I would say diabetes, diabetes. And my patients would just stare at me like totally clueless. So it's diabetes. And I just always felt like I was just over exaggerating. But yeah, that's one of the struggles with me with the Swedish language.